Welcome to the One Person Business Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Carly Reese.
And I'm Joe Rando.
And we are so excited to have Lisa Couturier. And I've been practicing that last name, Lisa, to make sure I got it right on the podcast today. And I'm really excited about it because as solopreneurs, we have issues with boundaries. We work around the clock. I mean, we kind of mix our personal life and our professional life. And I think that's just human nature. And today, Lisa is going to talk about the topic of without boundaries, there is no balance. And we do need that in order to have a sustainable business and to avoid burnout. So I'll let you know why Lisa's qualified for the job, because she's extremely qualified to talk about this topic. She has over 25 years of experience and is one of the top experts who work with high-performing individuals to get in alignment with their values, to question the status quo with integrity, increase revenue, integrate freedom and flexibility in both personal and professional lives, like I was just talking about, without the overwhelm and without burnout. Again, just want to reiterate, that is the topic of this podcast, so you need to be tuning in. She's passionate about guiding and supporting people on building relationships, bringing the human element versus simply closing the deal, following the ABCs, yada, yada, yada. So, Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you both for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I've loved being a part of the community.
Well, we're so excited to have you. Yeah, definitely. And I the first question I have is actually a me thing, because I think I establish pretty good boundaries, but sometimes I am told that I don't, and that I work at the weirdest hours and all of that. It's getting better now, but in my earlier career, it was all over the place. So if you're not aware of it, what are the signs that indicate an imbalance caused by a lack of boundaries?
Well, just what the first thing you said, people usually start to say, you're not present. Why aren't you here? You're here, but you're really not here. Internally, you can start to feel that anxiety building up, the overwhelm, the exhaustion, the burnout. Sometimes worse, depression will actually set in, or your body starts to break down and there's illness that becomes involved as well.
It's so funny you say that with the illness thing. When I was in my early 20s, when I was working around the clock, my right arm would go numb. I was like, I'm 25. Like, I hope I'm not having a heart attack. And my neighbor across the street is a doctor, and he was like, run around the block, and if you don't make it, I'll come get you. We'll call 911. But if you do make it, it's probably stress related. And so turns out, and anytime I would get really stressed, my right arm would go numb. And I don't know if heart attack is left arm, right arm, but it was a physical manifestation of burnout and that I needed to make a change.
Yeah, people will tell me sometimes that I go woo-woo, but I love the woo-woo world because there's so much fact in the woo-woo. But if you look at your right arm, that is your masculine. So you were overdoing. And as a female, it was going numb because it was overdone and you weren't in your feminine energy. So that's the woo-woo. That's as much woo-woo as I'll give you today.
I'm good with the woo-woo. Yeah, my now husband, he would know something's going on because I'd just be going like this, but I'd keep typing and he's like, Carly, you were like subconsciously moving your arm to try to get the blood flow. Like, he's like, what are you doing? But yeah, I'm good with the woo-woo. I did not know that. So thanks for that. Well, so I didn't have the best self-awareness. So how can people develop that self-awareness to establish better boundaries if they're not so great at it from the beginning?
So actually step back, have some quiet time to become self-aware. Where are you feeling that angst or the numbness, or where are you feeling tightness? And become just totally self-aware of what's going on around you. Listen to what people are saying. As well, like I said, feel. So we're looking at all three, like the visual, the kinesthetic, and the auditory. Look at yourself. Do you look stressed? Look in the mirror. Look yourself in the eye and ask, is this really who you want to be seeing? Is this who you would want to meet if you were walking down the street? And then you look at, okay, somewhere there's an imbalance. I'm out of alignment. What am I tolerating? And then really looking at, what do I want my boundaries to be? I talk about value-based. So do you know your core values? Are you in alignment with them? Do you know the actual needs that you need as a human, not just your survival needs, but the needs being recognized. Maybe some people just need to be recognized. They need to be heard. Are those needs being met on a daily basis? And even your wants. Growing up in the South, I was told that, good girls should be happy with the basic needs and that's it. Yes, I was grateful for them, but I wanted so much more. And at times I was made to feel guilty for wanting more. But we as individuals, we have needs, we have wants, and then we have values. And are all of them in alignment?
Yeah. So my question about that, so you might be able to, once you have that self-awareness and you realize it, and I think this is a bigger thing for women than it is for men. And I'm not trying to say it's not a problem for some men, but I feel like when women...
I'll let you know.
Yeah, you tell me. I feel like when people try to communicate their boundaries, they can come off as being tough or being rude. How can you do that without that connotation?
I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. Again, when you're out of that alignment and you don't have those boundaries, we do start to react opposed to respond. So if you're feeling like you're going to snap at someone to set those boundaries, you've already gotten out of alignment. So really just communicating in a nice way, hey, you know what, this doesn't feel right, or this doesn't seem right for me. And I feel that maybe I haven't set my boundaries, or maybe I set them and I just didn't communicate them well enough. So this is what I'm needing. This is what I'm wanting. And that way it's not going, hey, these are my boundaries and you cross them over, but just having that moment before you snap to talk it out. When I go into some smaller corporations and I start to work, I go, listen, I know that I'm your client for the most part. You've hired me to do this, but these are my core values, and flexibility and freedom are very important to me. So while I'm here to work for you and I'm going to give you my all, I need to have that freedom and flexibility. And I'm not working on Fridays. I'm not working on Monday mornings, not in your group. And I stop working at 4. Please don't call me unless it's a 911. And for most part, it's respected. There's always one that's not going to do it. But I let them know right off the bat that this is how I work. And if you don't want to work like that, let's put it on the table right now so that we can step away.
So my question is that with that, you said I don't work on Mondays and Fridays. I don't work after 4. But how, because you have to be a little bit flexible too, or do you? I mean, for me, I always say, okay, I have my calendar blocked off. These are not the times that I can work, whether I'm taking the kids to school, whatever. But then something will come up and it's like, well, I guess my husband could do that. Or how do you navigate the line of setting strict boundaries, but also being able to be flexible too? And where do you stand with all of that?
I mean, again, because flexibility is one of mine, I have the flexibility to change it if I need to. It's just like when we set a goal, you can either change the goal or change the timeline of that goal. We all have that power within us to do that. So just because you set the boundary, you will know by being very self-aware as to, okay, this is something I really want to do. I'm getting a need met by having this meeting with someone. Therefore, it's okay to break the boundary of of working on Friday or working on Monday morning. Otherwise, we're not at each other's disposal, just whenever somebody wants us or needs us, because we need and want to have time for ourselves. And so to honor that. Does that answer the question for you?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I want to touch on something because you started talking about personal goals and goal setting in general. Do you think boundaries play a huge part in that? Where do those go hand in hand?
I do. And it goes back to the core values. Setting those goals, having those goals aligned with the values that you have in life and in your business. And again, the timeline can change. or the goal can change, because as we grow and elevate, even in a project based, like so let's say you have a project in a corporate setting, or even in your own business, you have a project that needs to get done by this time. You may grow and elevate and start to realize this project, the goal that we set, is not the goal that we need. It might be a sub goal, but the goal could be actually larger than what we set it out to be, because we've grown and we've done the research and we start to really get into the project. So it needs to change. So yes, there are boundaries there, but you can expand the boundary as well. I think as long as you honor and respect your core values and have your needs and wants met, there's that, again, that flex there for you to change and move about.
One of the things that I like to do in this, and I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but it's what I do is sometimes with these tough decisions is I make the decision in my mind and then I see how I feel. And if I feel more relaxed, less stressed about it, then I think it's the right decision. If my anxiety level goes up, then it's the wrong decision.
Yeah, Jeff,
and it's worked really well for me.
That is so good, because I tell my clients to put their hand on their heart, and their heart is their compass. That's your feeling, right? So that you don't get in your head, that it's not a so much thought process, but a heart-based decision. So you put your hand on your heart, use that as your compass. And like you said, is my compass pretty much right here? Is it leaning too much to the left? Is it leaning too much to the right? But if it's right in that little sweet spot, right, then it's okay. Then that's what you could be doing and need to be doing. Work doesn't need to be difficult. Boundaries don't need to be difficult. Most of us went into business for ourselves to have that independence, to make an impact, to have the freedom and the flexibility, also to be inspired. And if we're not feeling any of that, then somewhere we're not in alignment and our boundaries are not strong enough to withstand what it is that we're truly wanting at the end of the day.
You were saying that boundaries don't have to be difficult. Have you seen any consequences of like overly rigid boundaries with any of your clients or in your personal experience?
Well, just putting rigid as an adjective in front of boundary is like almost like a judgment. And, people go, oh, you've got boundaries. Like, it's like having standards. They're not good or bad. It's having, again, the flexibility around the boundary and honoring what feels right to you, what's right for your family, or what's right with your team, and communicating that on a continual basis.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. This is going to kind of like zone out a little bit, but in thinking about boundaries and even aside from work, I'm a millennial. So I'm supposed to be on Instagram and TikTok. Maybe not, I'm an older millennial, but still. And I have set boundaries with when my kids are around, I'm not on my phone, and I've taken those apps off my phone. I still have them. I can still log in on my desktop, but that was the boundary that I set. But I'm perceived as being the odd one out amongst like, oh, well, Carly doesn't know that this is going on because she doesn't get on Instagram very much and things like that. What kind of cultural or societal influences or what impact does that have on individuals as they perceive boundaries, and how can you kind of go against the norm when you're setting your boundaries?
It goes to technology. It's good and bad, right? It helps us. We're doing this right now because of technology. You're in Colorado, Massachusetts, and North Carolina. Boom. We would have never met otherwise unless, again, I was traveling 80 hours a week traversing the country. We might have met at an airport. But again, learning the boundaries just with social, you've created a healthy boundary for you that works for you. Maybe you're not in the know of everything that's going on, but do you really want to be in that know? Probably not. It's not important to you. My business, I do a lot of business on social media. I get clients that way. That's how we met on LinkedIn, social media. Again, I don't enjoy all of that social media thing. So my boundary was, I know I have to do it. I'm going to hire a marketing team to be there for me. We meet once a month. We batch it all for the whole month or the quarter, because I don't even like batching it every month. And then my God bless her, my virtual assistant, she says, hey, this is something that is truly what you're wanting. I think you need to respond right away. So I have somebody monitor to let me know when I need to be on, because I don't enjoy it at all.
Do you see technology playing a huge part in like when you're with your clients, do you see technology being a big boundary issue as one of the main ones? And like, what are some other boundaries that you face a lot, like or what do people struggle with a lot when it comes to boundaries, I guess, in your sessions?
There's a lot, the work-life balance and boundaries there, learning when to shut it off, especially, again, with technology, our smartphones, right? They're great, but they've made us accessible 24/7. What's the boundary of shutting that off? I decided in 1995, you may not have even born, Carly, yet. Like, literally, it wasn't going to work. Like, I'm not going back into that office. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a time suck with a commute and everything. I'm not ever going back into an office. That was a boundary that I set up. And I don't care how rigid it is, not going. Because it's important to me to have just what I need instead of going into an office. But if I had left the office, no one would contact me. Just a few years ago, even before COVID, they're like, no, she's gone home. That's her boundary. It's her safe place. We're not contacting her. But now people are like, oh yeah, it's 11 o'clock. I had an idea. Let me send it to you. We have to shut it down because, again, our brains are hardwired. It's like a hard drive. And that I'm even talking technology like this is funny, but it's a hard drive. And hard drives can be downloaded, they can be backed up and all that. Our brains can't. It only can take so much. So if we get overloaded, we start to react opposed to respond. We get sick. There's too much information. So we have to shut down, step back, sit into that quiet, become self-aware, and restore ourselves so that we can be efficient, we can be effective on the next day when we go back in.
My assumption is that when people set these boundaries, that the boundaries would change over time. I know my boundaries when I didn't have a family would be different now and like all that. Then now, like, again, like you said, going into an office versus not having to now, it just changes. How do you know when to address, like, how do you know when to reassess your boundaries? And then how do you go about doing that? I mean, I'm assuming effective communication with others, but even with yourself, how are you like, oh, well, I've been so strict about this for so long. Maybe it's time I release some of this.
But again, as we grow and we evolve, the boundary is going to change. Some of it may stay with us, but a lot of it is going to change. It's just like when we go back to social media, a lot of people go, oh, okay, I've got my own business now. I've got to go into social media, but they don't have the boundary of keeping their personal life and their professional life separate. And so therefore, some things that are personal is fine. An individual can go and look it up now and it's right there. So we all need to learn how to keep it separate, but yet let people connect with us. So we build a rapport online, but there has to be boundaries. My daughter she just gave me permission to post a picture of my grandchild on social media. She goes, that's my place, not yours. With my boyfriend, he's very, very, very private. And so I said, listen, I'm out here on social media. My life needs to be out there to show freedom and flexibility. And he goes, would you just ask me before you post anything? Because he's in a very professional environment as well in the security space. So that could affect him if it's out there, because you can find it. It never goes away, right? So just setting up those professional boundaries, the personal boundaries, knowing that when we grow and we evolve, that the boundaries need to grow and evolve with us.
Yeah, Lisa, I'm so happy you came on today, because I think a lot of times when solopreneurs think about their business, they think about the business and they think about the accounting and the marketing. And I know I'm in marketing, but they think about marketing and sales and the operations of all one. They don't often think about, take a step back to think about themselves. and to think how they can best contribute to their business. And this is such a big part of it. And I just don't have any doubt that the people who are struggling with that are going to learn so much from this episode, and that you're really going to help them find success in taking that step back. So I have to ask, what is your favorite quote about success?
I have so many, but like I love one by Mark Cuban. He says that it doesn't matter if your glass is half full or half empty. What matters is that you're the one pouring the water.
Oh, I love that. And Mark Cuban's been relatively successful, I guess you would say.
Yes. I prefer my glass to be half full of champagne, but again, as long as I'm pouring it, right? And then another one, Winston Churchill says, never give up on something that you can't go a day without thinking about it.
Whoa, I like that.
You know? And then my own is be the type of person that you would want to meet. I said it in the beginning. And just laugh. Like people take life so seriously. Just be able to laugh at yourself. Even if you just sit by yourself, we're all solopreneurs, right? And just schedule some time just to laugh out loud. No one's watching. Just laugh crazy. Your like goofy laugh, your snorting laugh, whatever the laugh, just laugh out loud. And it also resets your brain to let it know that it's time to get back to work.
That's one of the reasons I love our community too, is because if you've messed up or if something's happened that you can just laugh about, there's a really good chance that's happened to somebody else too.
Definitely. You share so much, even though people are in so many different industries. But being a solo, it's just your reason for doing it, as you pointed out, is it's not about making tons of money or whatever. It's about having the life that you want. And it's very different from being an entrepreneur and starting up a startup and getting venture capital. And this is why this conversation is so important. I was thinking about it actually yesterday, and we just moved after 29 years in the same house, and and they still got this going on and everything. And I said, I just want to be caught up. I just want to be caught up. And it's like, maybe what you said is like, maybe I need to change my definition of caught up right now,
Yeah.
Rethink that goal and put it into different terms, because it ain't happening.
Hey, Joe, I call it a power hour. And give yourself grace. Honest to God, moving is like so stress. I love moving because it resets everything and it creates a new environment, but really give yourself that grace. But a power hour, if you focus on one thing that works and you just set the clock and you do that one thing for an hour, and when the timer stops, whether you're finished or not, you just, okay, I'm going to do something else now, be it play, be it just sit and relax, veg, just look up at the clouds. But if you want to keep going, you can. But if you call it a power hour and do as much focused work as you can, whether it's business or life, like unpacking, you just do that 1 hour and then move on later or come back to it.
Actually, exactly what I was thinking about was like, I'm just going to spend a little time this afternoon unpacking boxes, because they're all rearranged behind me, so you strategically can't see them, I hope.
You cannot. You look very professional, Joe.
And remember, do what you can do, drop what you don't need to do, and delegate the rest.
Love it. Lisa, This has been so great. If people want to chat with you about all this and need help setting boundaries and just everything else you do, which we'll put your full bio in the show notes. I didn't even scratch the surface, I don't think, of everything you do. Where can people find you to learn more?
So on LinkedIn, I'm under Lisa K, the initial Couturier, and then Lisa Couturier _ on Instagram. Or you can call me like we used to do old school. My number is public. It's 508-517-8214.
I love that. I want to call you just because you can't call any businesses anymore, it seems like. So just the fact that we can, I'm just going to call and say hi.
That's awesome.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the show. We so appreciate it. And listeners, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe both wherever you're listening to your podcast from the audio side or on YouTube. And we will see you next time.
Thank you for having me. It was great.